It's time now for Truth or Fake. Vedika Bahel joins me on set. Hi, Vedika.
Hi, Karis.
Vedika, European digital transparency rules have become a flashpoint between Brussels and US big tech companies backed by Donald Trump's administration. Today, the European Commission has completely dismissed what it called completely crazy statements by Elon Musk. What did he say?
Well, yes, that is correct, Karis. X's Elon Musk has posted a slew of online attacks against the EU after the European Commission imposed a €120 million fine on X for breaching its transparency obligations. Now, in what I can only describe to you as an online frenzy, Musk posted and reposted a series of memes and jabs and satire. We can see a couple of examples of that here about his anger against the EU's decision. But he did take this as far as to compare the European Union to Nazi Germany. Now, he also made posts calling to dissolve the European Union entirely. He said here that the EU should be abolished and sovereignty returned to individual countries so governments can better represent their people. He followed this up by saying, "I love Europe, but not the bureaucratic monster that is the EU." Now, this constant posting and these constant jabs, I'm talking hundreds of tweets here, well, this led to a response from the bloc itself, which said it's part of freedom of speech to put out even completely crazy statements. So the bloc hasn't minced its words there, Karis, about how it sees Elon Musk's behaviour.
And Vedika, what is the reason for this €120 million fine against Musk's platform?
Well, according to the European Commission on Friday, it is for non-compliance with the bloc's transparency rules. Now, as a very large platform, X has obligations under the DSA, that is the European Union's Digital Service Act. It is the bloc's flagship law in order to regulate online platforms. Now, the EU said that X's blue checkmark had a deceptive design. It also called out lack of transparency of its advertising repository, saying that the app fails to provide transparency around its ads, and that it doesn't give its public data to researchers overall. So let's take a listen exactly to what the EU had to say.
X has indeed breached its transparency obligation under the DSA. This includes X's blue checkmark. It deceives users. Anyone can pay to obtain the verified status, and X does not meaningfully verify who is behind it. It also includes X advertising repository, which does not work properly, and X doesn't provide effective data access for researchers. Today's decision has nothing to do with content moderation. It's about transparency.
And about transparency, sorry, we got cut off at the end there. But as we heard, the EU finds that the blue tick deceives users. That is because they believe it makes it difficult to judge about the authenticity of the accounts, as anyone can pay to obtain that verified status. And I can validate that, especially here on Truth or Fake, our fact-checking show. It is very difficult to check those accounts and who is behind those, especially we're seeing a rise in misinformation and fake news pertaining to those accounts, particularly because people believe that the verified checkmark believes that it is a qualified verified account rather than a journalist or a news organisation or government officials. Now, the EU also said in its press interest, in its press release, this is a bit more detail about it, but regarding the ad repository, it says that X lacks critical information like the content and topic of the ad, and especially the legal entity who is paying for it. And lastly, as we heard there, they have issue with the platform's public data and lack of providing it to the EU, which they believe, Karis, is undermining research into several systemic risks in the European Union.
All right, and finally, Vedika, the EU's decision has also triggered a reaction from Washington, hasn't it?
That is correct. Well, we did hear briefly in that EU soundbite that they clarified that this wasn't about moderating the app or censorship, but in fact for transparency regarding X. But hasn't stopped top Washington officials from wading in to blast this decision. Just before the European Commission made that announcement about that fine, Vice President J.D. Vance slammed the EU, saying it should be supporting free speech, not attacking American companies over garbage. There's another reaction here by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who said it isn't just an attack on X, but on all American tech platforms and the American people by foreign governments. I also have a reaction here by the US ambassador to the EU, who says that it is in fact a result of EU regulatory overreach. Now, what happens next? Well, X now has 60 days to inform the Commission of its plans to address the issue surrounding those blue check marks. And in terms of submitting its plans for the ad repository and public data. It has 90 working days to do so and submit what it's going to do about that. Whether Musk pays up, Karis, we will just have to wait and see.
All right, indeed.